Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I want to clear up a misconception uh, for this sister, man, who just continue to be in the comments. And I really don't entertain her. But a couple of Muslims been affected by her comments. So I want to clarify something concerning slaves during the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I just want to clarify something, a couple of misconceptions, because she wanted to post this hadith from Sahih Muslim, which because they don't understand Islam. 2, they don't read the Quran. 3, they don't read hadiths. So they listen to debates and they listen to other people who go try to pick and choose ways to manipulate verses and hadiths for the purposes of attacking ignorant people. Right? And so this is what I want to clarify. And I'm going to start with the Quran first. But before I start with the Quran, I want to clarify this first and foremost. Right? Throughout the history of mankind, at a particular point in time, there has always been some form of slavery. Now, because us African Americans, sometimes we speak through trauma. So slavery as we know it is the only type of slavery that ever existed. You understand? And if you use the word black, then that automatically means an African. That automatically means one of us. But we always quick to throw around terminology like black is not a nationality. White isn't a nationality either. But it was just a form of a term that was used to group a whole bunch of people from different tribes together. Just like everybody that's white isn't the same thing. You know what I'm saying? You got Italians, Russians. So white isn't a nationality either. For the people who feel like that's some big ha-ha moment, we're not black and not a nationality, and this is that to take away your rights. Okay, they call white. You understand? It's just a bunch of hoopla and it's a bunch of fluff. But I'm mentioning that for a reason. Black isn't a nationality. So if you see something and it says because somebody was black, that does not mean that they was an African. That don't mean that they was an African American. You have Pakistanis. I got some teachers in Egypt that's darker than me, and they Egyptian. You got Egyptians that's dark. You got people in the Saudias, right, in the Arabia Peninsula, that's dark. You got people from Yemen, that's dark. You understand? You have Italians that have dark skin. You understand? You have like Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. That's dark. But do that mean that they African? Do that mean that they black on the aspect of how we trying to say that they black? Because we be speaking through a form of trauma. Because slavery is only what we know of it. So a form of slavery has always existed, and every race of people has played a role in it. Even with slavery that was here in America, there was black people that owned slaves. This is a fact. This is a fact. Not making that as right. Then you had the ones who say the Africans is the one who sold other Africans into slavery. So nobody hands is clean. But everything that's cloaked under the English word slavery doesn't mean that it was what's going on here. Because before they started using that term, they was using terms indentured servant. Like a person who was indebted to you and they worked off their debt. You took care of them, you fed them, they clothed them, you clothed them, and they did work until they paid off their debt. So when you understand the Arabic and then you see different things, and then you have to think the form of slavery that we know is not what always existed. Everybody wasn't as cruel and hanging slaves and burning them and chopping off their feet, chopping off their private parts, raping the men, raping them and using babies for the alligator bait and all this type of stuff. This isn't what slavery always was. Okay? So nobody's hands is clean from any version of slavery, period, as far as a race of people. Now, slavery was something that existed before Islam, more on an indentured servant end. We talking about before Islam. Now, you have stuff about the Hebrews, this and that, but I'm not going to go into that. I just want to make it clear for these people who can't understand, all right? Because they speaking through trauma, and they want other people to be just as hateful as they are. Because one thing about them is they come to peaceful people and try to breathe hate into them. You can't turn me into no hater. You understand? I have more of an understanding. I don't have a whitewashed program lackadaisical mindset. Alhamdulillah. So they think that they telling us something, you know what I'm saying? But I'm just going to go to the Quran because it further proves my point. Like I said, the Muslims was the first to start freeing slaves. I never said they ended slavery. The Muslims didn't have that type of power. Even if you look at all the Muslims that we have right now, we still don't have enough power to change what Russia want to do, what the United States want to do, what one half of Africa wants to do. So we talking about thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years of practice that was going on before the birth of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just because Islam was given to him, he couldn't stop it. He didn't have the power to put an end to it. So what Allah Azza wa Jal, so I'm making that clear. The Muslims were some of the first to start freeing slaves. They didn't end slavery. They didn't have the power to. Especially at this time. And then I'm going to address that hadith, but I'm going to address a couple of Quran ayats. In Surah 4:92, look what it says. But never should a believer, so we know this is a Muslim, kill another believer, unless accidentally. Yet anyone who accidentally kills a believer, then the atonement, the emancipation, is freeing a slave. So we knew some of the Muslims had slaves. But this was a practice before Islam came. And it's funny because these be Hebrew Israelites, but what it say about how to treat slaves is worse in their Bible. You understand? It's worse in their Bible, but they swear up and down how they feel about Africans, but then they want to say this was the Hebrews based off of some scriptures that they really don't understand, that's been tangled and twisted. But again, right? And a compensation submitted to the family of the person who was killed. So you have to free a slave, and then you have to pay some type of money or some type of compensation to the family of the person you killed. Unless they donated, they waived the money off and say, you know what, it's all good, I'm going to leave it in the hands of Allah. But if he was from people who are enemy to you, yet he is a Muslim, then the emancipation of a slave, again, under these circumstances, you free a slave. And if he was from a people between you and whom there is a pledge, then a compensation submitted to his family, and the emancipation of a slave. So there's many ayats in the Quran encouraging the Muslims to free slaves. As a matter of fact, if you do something wrong, it's mandatory that you free a slave. So you're not talking about nothing new to us. But is it the slavery that you think it is, and is it only black people? I'm going to misspell that. I'm going to dispel that logic right now. Let me read one more Quran ayat. And there's several. We read our Quran. We know what's in our Quran. We know what's in hadiths. But see, y'all pick and choose hadiths instead of looking at them all trying to learn, but just looking at hadiths to breed hate. You're not finna make me hate the deen of Islam. You're not finna make me doubt it. You're not finna make me question it. So, you're really wasting your breath. Surah 90. Ayah number 13, right? No. Let me see. Hold on. I done went too many pages. Ayah number 13, right? But it says, but we're going to start at 11. But he did not brave the difficult route. He didn't take the difficult route, right? And what can make you realize what the difficult route is? This is in Islam. This is in Jannah. So the difficult route is the freeing of a slave, or the feeding the poor on the days when they're starving, and of orphaned relatives or destitute person. So the ones who take this path in Islam, this is the difficult road. So Allah Azza wa Jal knew how difficult it was for them to free slaves that they had, indentured servants, and feeding poor on days of their starvation, and their orphan relatives or a destitute person. So, and the dust and it says, then becoming of those who attained Iman and enjoined upon one another's patience and enjoined upon one another compassions. Those are the fellows of righteousness, right? But those who denied our revelations, those are the fellows of the ill-omened. Over them is a fire with no exist. So Allah Azza wa Jal is sitting up saying, this is the difficult route. The one who choose to free the slaves. Right? It's highly encouraged in Islam. Now, this hadith, it's amazing because the writing is right there in the hadith. So they love to quote this hadith, which was very early on in Mecca. So we know in the beginning the Muslims was fairly weak. It wasn't even a lot of them. So basically when they was coming up with the plans to migrate, to go to Medina, right? When you go through the history, you have to see how long that time went. Because keep in mind, it was some people from Medina that came to meet the Rasul, and he gave them dawah, and then had them go back to Medina and give the dawah and start to convert the people. And then as soon as they got a stronghold on Medina and it was safe for the Rasul to come, then this is how the plan went. That took some time. So it was a person, his name was Zayd, right? Who was an Arab from the Quraysh. So in this hadith that they're referring to, where it's saying that the Rasul, it was a guy who pledged to go to Medina with them. But he was a slave. He was an indentured servant, right? But he didn't tell the Rasul. So when the person who he was serving found out, he came and told the Rasul. So the Rasul said, okay, well, sell him to me then. Now, this dude was an Arab. He was from the tribe of the Quraysh. And he was somebody's English definition of the word, or the English terminology, slave, but not necessarily the exact same definition. And of a lot of us know who understand the Arabic language, sometimes they take a word that put it in the place of the Arabic word, but the definitions aren't the same. It's just to give you somewhat of an understanding. Just like us, what are we? When we call ourselves Abdullah, we slaves of Allah. Is this the same type of slavery that's in the black American head? No, it's not. You understand? And when you look at the wordings, you'll see they use two different words. But anyway, so one, he was, because they like to use this hadith, he was a slave. He was an Arab. He was from the tribe of the Quraysh. He was not black. So the person wanted 2 black slaves in exchange for him. Now, when it says he gave up 2 black slaves for exchange for him, right? For exchange for him. Okay? Then that's letting you know there was other slaves that wasn't black, because he chose 2 that was black. Now, also, when you go and look through the history of the Deen of Islam, just because they use a wording like that doesn't mean that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the owner of the 2 slaves. Because just like when it was other slaves and there was other people that was going on and they wanted to barter, it was people who stepped up and did that for the Rasul. But the point is, this was an Arab person. So, but then we're going to say the Rasul did own the 2 black slaves, right? Black is not a nationality. Do that automatically make them African? You have people that's dark from Yemen. You understand? Now, not to say they don't have some type of African in their background or their bloodline or none of that, but black isn't a nationality. Do that mean he was one of us? No, it doesn't. But the point is, he bought another slave, but look what he did. When he bought that slave, he freed him and adopted Zayd as his son. Rasul Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a Jewish woman who was enslaved. She was enslaved from prisoners of war. Now, they did have certain things where they did capture certain people who was fighting and trying to kill them. There's a different set of circumstances. So some of the men, they would ransom them off to their family. If they vowed they wasn't going to try to fight and kill the Muslims no more, if their family wanted to pay for them back, for their freedom, then they sold them to them. But if they didn't sell them back, if their family didn't come buy them, they put them to work. Kind of similar like what they do to people in prison. You violate some crimes, you could go get put in prison, and then you might have to work, a form of slavery. But in return, they still got fed, they got clothed, they got taken care of. But this was a Jewish woman. She was a slave. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam freed her and married her. But the point is this: she was a Jewish woman. So all slaves was not African black people. I understand we speaking through a form of trauma. And all forms of slavery wasn't like the type of slavery that you know. The type of slavery that you know about is up 10,000 years after this. But when you go and look at the hadiths, because y'all love to go and pick out certain hadiths, when you look at the hadiths with the Rasul and he referred to them as servants, how did he treat them? They used to clean his home, wash the dishes, right? And in the hadiths it say, any chores that he had his servants doing, the Rasul Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did the chores with them. And then from whatever food he ate, when he ate, he sat on the floor, but that's a Muslim thing to sit on the floor, right? So not like sit on the floor, because some people who don't understand nothing and ain't really been in the masjid, although they see videos of Muslims all over the world sitting on the floor eating. Because I'm saying this because I done heard some of them say, oh, because they was black, they had to sit on the floor. But anyway, he would sit on the floor and eat with them. They ate from what he ate. Not they ate the best, he ate the best, and throw the pig guts and force them to make chitlins and tails and pig nose and feet. It wasn't the same thing. And then from the clothes that he wore, they wore the same type of clothes that he wore. You understand? It was a woman who was a slave to his mother, who stayed by Rasulullah's side until she passed away. She didn't want to go nowhere. See, y'all don't know this. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had another wife named Maria. Some people say she was Egyptian. She was also a slave that he freed and married, and she actually had a son by him, Ibrahim. So I'm only pointing that out just to get it through people's head, because you keep speaking through trauma. So you're not going to make me hate Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by pointing out a hadith where he bought a non-black slave to free him, but he gave up 2 black slaves who was captured from war that was non-Muslims. Now, when you understand this and know that they was captives of war that was non-Muslims, when did they ever go to war with the Africans? Generally, they was fighting other Arab tribes, other Jewish tribes of the same area, because they didn't want Islam to be dominant. So when you understand the history, just because it referred to them as black, it don't mean they was African. See, y'all speaking through trauma and you reaching. But again, look at how he treated them. You look at his life, Rasul never was beating nobody. And then when it got to a certain point, you'll see where he was freeing them. Some of these people were slaves before he became prophethood. He couldn't just end slavery. He wasn't running Mecca. He got ran up out of there. They tried to kill him. He couldn't change nothing at that time. But as the Quran was revealed, Allah Azza wa Jal is encouraging the freeing of slaves. So when we had to pay things like zakat, when it was to the point where they collected zakat and there was nobody to that needed the zakat, they would take that money and send it to other regions and free the slaves. It was actual people. And like in that hadith, the Rasul said he didn't take anybody else's pledge until he made sure they was free first, right? Because of the way the Muslims carried it, when you look through history, people who was slaves, just like Bilal, who was a slave, that they paid for his freedom, but he knew how it was, and they started accepting Islam because of what Islam said about the treatment of slaves. So nobody hands is clean as a race of people from any form of the slave trade. The slave trade that was horrible, that happened in America and Haiti and all them other little areas. No race of people hands is clean. Not even black people. You even had black people who went and rounded up and got the slaves and helped capture them. You had slaves in this country that had escape routes, and it was other black people that told on them and went and captured them and brought them back and helped hang them and everything else. No race of people hand is clean for the horrible slavery and then the slavery that wasn't horrible. But again, this was before Islam, and the Quran tells us and instructs us on what to do when it came to slavery. So y'all need to understand all that if you think you're going to turn somebody like me into a hater of Islam. I see the beauty of that. Matter of fact, I see a correction in the problem. And you know what else? The correction is so beautiful that if more people would have embraced Islam, right, instead of trying to be haters, the type of slavery that we had wouldn't have happened, because Islam didn't allow it. Because Islam didn't allow it. Now, and I know this isn't going to be enough for y'all, because y'all going to have to go through and say, oh, this one and these ones did this and that. Just like you may be a Christian, you may be a Hebrew Israelite, but you might do drugs. You might fornicate. You might not even know how to follow your religion. So just because of what some Muslims continue to do or what they may have played their hand in, Islam go against that. And Allah Azza wa Jal is saying right there in the Quran, the ones who don't do it like what I'm talking about, and they be bogus and they go against that, they go into the hellfire. So they got to answer to Allah Azza wa Jal if they played things bogusly. No ifs, ands, buts, and maybes. So you're not going to make a hater out of me. And that's just a little bit of Islamic history, because y'all don't understand and y'all just pick and choose and try to find little things. But it's always trying to turn to black people. Just like it's a white guy in the comments. I guess he a soldier or something. And you know, he in the comments on the Hadith video. They both in the Hadith videos. And that's when the trolls always pop out. The video I got, the reality of Hadiths. When I post a video that has Aqidah in the title, or Hadiths, or the truth about Hadiths, they always come. Because those two things correct the Muslims. The correct Aqidah and Hadiths. So every time I post a video about Aqidah, or about the reality of Hadiths, or something about some Hadiths, they always come. So, you know, he trying to paint this picture about Malachi Z. York, somebody he seen on CNN. Well, it sounded like he was talking about Malachi Z. York. We all know that Malachi Z. York was not no Muslim. You know what I'm saying? Like he talking about he dressed like Muslims. The older Hebrew Israelites, not like these new dudes, they dress like Muslims too. The Hebrew Israelites about the 70s and 80s, Ben Yamin them, from up out the city, out Chicago, they dressed like Muslims too. They wore thobes. The Pope dressed like a Muslim. He wears a thobe. Nuns dress like Muslims. They wear full hijab. So because they were some Hebrew Israelite Nuwabian Moorish Americans. Everybody know what the Nuwabian Moors was and what Malachi Z. York was on. But his point was trying to make Islam look bad, like it ain't a thing for black people. And then he want to make up this whole little story about some girl who married a Pakistani guy who was in college, and it was all sweet and fine until they went back. He wanted to go home after he graduated, and then they turned on her, and she couldn't wear colors, and she couldn't do this, that, and makeup, this and that. I already knew about that story. He don't know what he talking about, because in Pakistan, the Pakistanis don't wear nothing but colors. A lot of them, to tell you the truth, especially in Pakistan, they don't even cover they have their hair hanging out. They have earrings. You know what I'm saying? Even here, a lot of them Indian Pakistanis, depending on how religious they is, a lot of them you probably wouldn't even know it, because if you see them in public, they hair all the way out. You understand? Now some of them be religious and they follow it, but man, in Pakistan, they actually was fighting the law of hijab. They wanted to remove it. They don't want to have to wear no hijab. So like they wear all black and all this other stuff in Pakistan and talking about she had to sleep in bombed out homes. They not bombing nothing in Pakistan. Talking about she wrote a book. If she did write a book and you read it, she's lying. But his point was that us black people never gonna be accepted as real Muslims. Like we gonna always be second class. Let me tell you something, bruh. Like one, you don't care. Because what black people ain't second class to you in America? Whether they Muslim or not. You understand? What black people not second class, third class, even if they consider to be human to you anyway? Are we just gonna say your people? You don't care. You care that much? You gonna come pay my bills? You gonna come make sure I'm straight? Nah, because you know Islam do something for us that you hate. See? Why do you care? But my point is this. See, you got me confused with some other people. My Islam ain't for nobody else. I don't care if an Arab don't accept me. I don't care if a Pakistani don't accept me. I don't care if a Somalian don't accept me. An African, a black American. I don't care if no Muslim on this whole entire planet accept me as a Muslim. Or I'm a second class Muslim to them. I don't care. My deen is for Allah Azza wa Jal. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's who my deen is for. That's who matter if it accept me. I'm not no person who trying to get accepted because y'all keep having this because of the media. When it comes to black Muslims, y'all think this Nation of Islam, Nuwabian, Moorish American crap is what we think Islam is. And then when we say that's not Islam, y'all want to argue it. I'm not that. I'm not trying to be accepted by some nation that can kick me in, kick me out when they feel like it, and that I gotta pay monthly dues to be a member of, just for them to teach me what they want me to think. I'm not that. And I'm not nobody who's sitting around poop button behind somebody that's from overseas that don't really understand their deen, because I want them to, I might need some help getting my car fixed every once in a while. You know, I might want $300-400 after Ramadan so I can go splurge it on some non-Islamic activities. I'm not that, man. I'm not that. And I hate that I have to speak this way, because unfortunately some of us are like that, man. And they view us and think all of us is that way. I'm not that, Daki. So I just want to clarify that, man. You know, no offense, but y'all coming to peaceful people, man, trying to get them to you can't turn me into no hater. And like I said, man, I've been, one thing about us in America, if you're old enough, I've always been looked at as second class to other people. But do that make any difference to me? Nope. You understand? And alhamdulillah, I've been Muslim since I was 13 years old, man. So this thing has always been instilled in me. Even when I didn't understand Islam and I was out there in the wrong. Even though they had those other groups that was teaching a little bit of nationality, it still had enough for me to do for self. And man, I'm not depending on y'all, man. I got tawakkul. I put my trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. Know what I'm saying? And again, why do y'all care? Y'all just trying to turn people into haters. If you go and really study the religion for real, and then what you will start to see is Islam called for the solution to slavery. And when you understand hadiths, and then you can see the time period, this was very early on. And again, the Muslims wasn't strong enough to end slavery worldwide. You had slavery before the time of Prophet Moses. Even in y'all Bible, it talk about slavery. You want to be a Hebrew? Oh, how can you do this, man? And this person owns some black slaves, this and that. Hold on. Black isn't a nationality, right? For the Hebrews and the Moors, right? Black ain't a nationality. Do that mean they was Hebrews? Do that mean they was African? Do that mean they was Moors? You don't know what they was. But you got to look at the history. And then if you a person who go overseas or you mix with enough foreigners, it's a brother in this community right now. His name's Sultan. Sultan darker than a lot of the African Americans I know, and he's from Pakistan. You know what I'm saying? Dark, got the stringy hair. He got all the Pakistani features. He just real dark. But not only him, some of his kids. He ain't the only ones. And then some of the other ones, when they be standing right next to me, some of them who was around here, they be barely lighter than me. Or we be close to the same color. So because, like I said, because y'all speak through trauma, and anytime you hear the word slave or slavery, you automatically think it was something that was done to black people and Africans only. And it was this atrocious, malicious, wicked thing that they did to us here. That's not the case. Because I'll tell you this right here. We blame everything on trauma, on slavery, right? We can't get this, we can't get that. Our minds messed up because this, that, and the third, right? If this was the exact same slavery everywhere else, why they mind ain't messed up the same way? Why they mind ain't messed up the same way if it was the exact same thing? So again, Islam came with the solution for slavery, which was something that came before Islam. Thousands of years before Islam. You understand? So why y'all just trying to create hate? Go look at the religion and really learn what's to it for real. When you look at it, man, we're not bothering anybody. Y'all coming to us, trying to spread that little nasty hate that you got in your heart. You understand? So I'm off of that, man. And I'm going to answer this question, man. A sister asked me, do I feel like in our community that the Muslim men failed the sisters? And I'm going to be honest and say yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. As a whole, no. Every brother, no. Some sisters just failed the religion and failed good brothers. That's just a reality. Why do I say this? Because I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest, and it's just my situation. I'm gonna say, out of every 20 brothers, well, I ain't gonna say every 20. We just gonna say, let's take 20 brothers. 15 to 16 out of that 20, they can't educate their wives. They can't educate their wives. They can't teach them to recite. Right? They can't even, a lot of them, they can't even really recite Al-Fatiha. This isn't a diss, this isn't a knock to them, but this is just a reality, man. This is just a reality. And some of the women that they have, they don't know it. And then I say about then you take it up to about 17 or 18, they busy they wives with stuff that's not education. You can't listen to, you can't take from, you gotta have this look. You gotta look this way. You gotta call yourself this. And this isn't just one group. So I want to say that so nobody take offense to it. This isn't just one group. You gotta have this look. You gotta do this. You can only look at this book. You can only look at that. But then when it comes to the basics of Islam, they don't know them. They don't know them. You know what I'm saying? And they look to us. They look to us. You understand? And we failed them because we don't be who we claim to be. Might be good brothers. You know what I'm saying? You got some sisters, man, who got some good Muslim husbands and this and that. But and they might really be in love with them, but they know their husbands don't really know the deen. They can't teach them Islam. And especially when you have a lot of people know who they're around. They know who they dealing with is not educated. So they could go listen to a video or two and then come repeat some stuff they heard in the video, but take it all the way out of context because they don't know the context in which it was put in. Just like how I add the context to this hadith that they've been quoting for like the past 15 years and don't understand nothing about it. And they keep trying to bring it to black people, and the Hebrews keep trying to bring it to other black people. But it's right there. He bought another slave that wasn't black for 2 blacks, which doesn't even confirm if it was his slaves or not. But it say for 2 black ones, which is letting you know there was also some other slaves that wasn't black. They chose the 2 black ones. So that right there alone, even in that hadith, the way they trying to disturb it and distort it and twist it, it's obviously clear that everybody that was considered to be a slave wasn't black. And black isn't a nationality. If a dang show wasn't us, if a dang show wasn't us black Americans, and that's a fact. Oh man, how can you do this and then woo out the woo, blase Skippy? Man, your ancestors could have owned some slaves. Do I disown you too? Should I not talk to you? But see, you don't know your history. And that's just a reality. A lot of black people own slaves, man. That's just a reality. Even in Africa. Should I never ever want to go to Africa again or want to possibly move there because they sold some blacks into slavery? But see, we speaking through trauma. You can't make no hater out of me. I know Islam came with the solution to slavery. I understand the history and I know it. So, like, again, and that's what I'm talking about, man. They be taking stuff out of context, man. And unfortunately, I gotta put it on us, man. I gotta put it on us because, and I hate to say this, out of the majority of sisters that I see that really want to learn and be serious, they can't get nowhere because of the person that they married to. Listen. And I could say wallahi to this. A numerous amount of times I done been in classrooms, right? Where I'm sitting up at the front and we're in a class. There's husbands and wives in there. And when sometimes you have to do an assessment. When people like, okay, can you teach us? Can we do this? Can we do that? You have to do an assessment to see what they need to learn first. And what basics do we need to go over if you know the basics but you have them in the wrong context? Do you know 90% of the time, every time I ask questions, the husbands always be wrong and the wives be right or they be part right? Wallahi. And then sometimes it make the brothers mad at me because they feel like I'm intentionally trying to embarrass them or make them look bad in front of their wives. No, this is an assessment. This what comes with education. Just like when you go to college, they put you an assessment test to see what classes you need to go through so they can know where to place you. And wallahi, And then the husbands always try to do this macho ego thing like, oh, I really knew the answer to that. I just want to leave it with the wives. No, they don't. No, they don't. Because I know them. And I'm saying, wallahi, I'm talking about numerous times. And not only do the husbands be wrong, they don't even be in the ballpark. They don't even be in the ballpark. You know what I'm saying? And like some of the answers and explanations, man, when you just hear it, it's just like it's just extremely obvious that it's full of crap. You know what I'm saying? Like because you're talking to somebody who know the answers and who's done the work. Like just totally make up something that don't even make sense Islamically. But I'm serious, man. Yes, we have failed the sisters Islamically, man. We have, man. And I'm telling you, it ain't every case, it ain't everywhere, but in a lot of instances, man, the conditions of a lot of these sisters, it's our fault. And then we just want to cloak it under, well, they wasn't serious, no way. They just wanted a guy. It could never be us. It could never be us, man. And they be done filled these sisters up, they head up with all this made up crap and what they feel and a bunch of jail talk and just weirdoism, man. You know what I'm saying? And they be extremely wrong. And I'm talking about, and I'm sitting up saying this, I'm talking about from about 2014 to the last classroom that I sat in with these husbands and wives in it was like last year around this time. Now, I was a little bit later than that. My bad. This was like around maybe August. And the only people that was right in there was the wives. And we talking about basic, like stuff you learn when you take your Shahada stuff, man. And it ain't a put down. And I see, and like I say, throughout these processes, even like people who I know and I talk to from other places, you know, it be difficult, man, to try to get these brothers, man, to understand. And you know, they like I say, they get chesty. You know, they feel tested. You know, they don't even really be wanting to do it. It be their wife wanting to do it. And you know what I'm saying? I can understand how that feel, man, for a brother who's sitting around, you know. Because like one thing we sit down and say, and this is the worst thing to be, I'm on my deen. I stay all the way on my deen, but don't even know what your deen is. And then they be having these wives that they think is highly impressed with them. And they wives sitting up looking at them saying, we need to go take a class. We need to go to the masjid and get them some classes. We need to go sit with Fulan and Fulan. Yeah, you can say what you want. If something go on, I'm calling Fulan. I'm calling the imam at the masjid. Them brothers don't like that, man. Because I'm all on my deen. Okay, I'm this, that, and the third. But they can't teach their wives, man. They can't. They can't, man. And then you have to figure out a way to not bruise their ego. Like, to be honest with you, sometimes when we doing the classroom thing, I'll just stop asking them questions because they get real shut downish. And it break my heart because the questions be so simple. I don't be expecting them to not know the answers. Not only to not know the answers, to be that far off. Yeah. Not only to not know the answers, but to be that far off. Yeah. So just to answer that question, man, I feel like we have, man. I feel like we the men, man. We created a lot of this, man, and going through them steps, man, of tarbiyah, man, that kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. It's cool if you want to just be a basic Muslim and pray, and you want to fast during Ramadan and pay zakat. That's perfectly fine. But quit trying to educate people. That's where the problem come in. They keep trying to tell people stuff and they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't even have enough sense to fear that if you mislead them, you get a piece of every action that they do that you misled them on. You see what I'm saying? These punishments from Allah Azza wa Jal, and man, it's just unfortunate, man. Like, and I'm gonna close on this. As y'all can see, man, I'm getting over a little issues, man, my throat, man. But alhamdulillah, right? So, wallahi, man, it was a little group. They got up with me and wanted to do a specific class. Okay? Now, because I knew a couple of them, wallahi, this is my thinking. Because I knew a couple of them and I've knew them for some years, they feel like they above these people that they inviting to the class. And then they're treating the class like, well, I don't really need it. This is really below my level. But y'all need it, so I'm just going to sit in the class with y'all. But I knew because they had that type of mindset, as they sit back and try to soak up some stuff to say, because I know them. Not judging them, not saying they bad people. I knew they was going to mess the class up if these other people started getting educated. Alright? So, the way I did it, I kind of gave them a way out. So it wouldn't look like it was messed up intentionally. Look, just do it like this. And then, if y'all need me, get up with me. I'll fill in the blanks. Because sometimes you have to leave people a way out when pride and ego is involved. Right? And let me make this clear. I'm not going to say whether they was male or female, because this done happened to me more than once. That's how I know how it's going to go, but me knowing the people. So I'm just going to make it clear. I'm not speaking on any gender, because more than one group of people can feel like I'm referring to them. And some know the scenario, and then some who was in the class, they don't know what went on. But anyway, one of the people who I felt like through day one, I didn't know them. They was a shining star. They was a shining star because they was the one who had actually read the material and answered the questions. Now, when I done did something long enough or taught a class long enough, by the way you answer certain questions, I could see your Aqidah. I could see if you just went and looked at the material and found what it said and tried to write that down. I could tell if you just made something up from your own mind. But this individual went and found some dalil, putting Quran ayats, and I was like, whew. So then I'm looking at the other ones in the class like, what's popping? Oh, well, I ain't really read the material. I just kind of scammed through it. So as it broke down, then a lot of little shot throwing was going on in the class. I say about a month or two afterwards, me and the person who I felt like it was a shining star, we bumped into each other. We just bumped into each other. So with the classes, woo wop the woo, this, that, and the third. Man, alhamdulillah, blase Skippy, what's going on? You still trying to work? Yeah, alright, cool. Send me your work. why they completed 2 months worth of classes in about 10 days. In about 10 days. Written out. And this is how I work. This how I work. Because that's how I did it. I did it a little quicker than that, but it was easier for me because I had more knowledge. But the way that they answering the questions, they really had to sit down and think about the dean. They didn't just look at it and try to write something, this, that, and the third. But my point is, had we not bumped into each other, their circle would have kept them stuck. Their circle still hasn't grew a bit. And this individual completed 2 months worth of classes in about 10 days. In about 10 days. Really a little probably a little less. And I'm talking about really put the work in. They didn't get 100%. They did miss some things, but I could see why they missed them, because some of it you either had to do a lot of detailed reading, some of it you couldn't catch. So it was trickery. So I understood why they missed it, but they still did extremely good. But they circled the people that they was around, and these people who think they probably more knowledgeable than them, and they not. And they not. And some of these people, man, could have had this stuff and access to this stuff, man, for a year, 2 years, 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes, man, it's the people that you around. And I done been through it. And alhamdulillah, I wanted it for myself, and I chased the avenues, and I went and got it. Just like I said, I done been around the groups and sitting with the brothers. Oh, we can't take from it. We can't listen to that. We don't do this. We gonna do that. And I'm sitting down saying, but the whole time, that's all we do. You can't listen to this. You can't read that. You can't do this. You can't do that. And then the stuff that y'all talking about, I done learned that stuff and mastered that stuff like 10 years ago. I'm stuck. But I had enough understanding to sit down and say, now you're not finna stop me from going to get that knowledge from a person that could teach it to me proficiently. When you can't. When you can't. The only thing I done learned from you is a bunch of mistakes and how to hate people. And I'm just keeping it Dougie, man. Sometimes it be your circle, man, and this is real talk. And I hate to say this, man. Sometimes it be your spouse, man. Sometimes it be your spouse. And some brothers, man, they want to teach their wife how to be impressed with them, man, instead of teaching them Islam, man. I'm on my deen, my deen is superb. But then they don't even know what their deen is, man. I'm talking about you can ask them something extremely basic, that's extremely serious, a serious matter in the deen of Islam, and then say something off the walls like, when frogs jump off a lily pad and go up in the air, you catch them with your tongue. I just be like this, like what? That must have been a spur of the moment. Like you made that up just now. That don't even sound like something you would say Islamically. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to diss them, but that be real talk, man. When a frog jump on a lily pad and go up in the air, you have to catch them with your tongue. You be like this. Like what? Excuse me? It's heartbreaking, man. And then it hurts me because I know these sisters got to sit up under these brothers, man. Sometimes they had kids with them, and then I got to not bruise these brothers' egos. And then sometimes they'll get the line on me. Like, I'd be like, man, you know what, man? When last time we talked, man, we covered this, and this. This should be in your notes. No, man, you never said nothing about that to me. Why are you lying? I mean, I know they lying because their wife is there and they trying not to look a certain way. But, man, it'd be sad, man. And in my head, it's just like, you're not going to grasp it, man. You got to be honest with yourself, man. So, yeah, to answer that sister question, man, in my opinion, we failed the sisters, man. Not as a whole, not everybody, because you got some sisters that sharp, man. And unfortunately, man, some of the sisters that sharp, it was another sister that got them that way. It was another sister that got them that way. A lot of the times. But anyway, man, let me get up out of here, man, and do what I got to do, man. As men, man, we got to be humble, man, and we just got to really learn our deen, man. And this, as crazy as this is, I learned this, man, as a kid, man, in martial arts, right? I had an uncle. Well, Stockful, I have an uncle, and he still got he got one of the, in his area, in the part in California where he is, he got one of the biggest karate schools. You know what I'm saying? Taekwondo. The man still got 100 plus students in Taekwondo, which is rare. But so I was taking Taekwondo at another place instead of with him because it was cheaper. But I would always go, because he stayed a block away from me. So I would always go train with him and jog and learn little different stuff, right? So that I could be head up in my school. Because I can go learn from him what they're not teaching yet. And then I can go in there and clean somebody up, right? But dude taught me this. He taught me this one thing, and it helped me in Islam. Because one day he was trying to show me something, man, and I just kept talking and saying this, but it. And he said, man, the first thing you need to learn is how to shut up. And I paused for a second. I was like, yeah. He said, because as long as you talking, you can't hear nobody but yourself. And the problem is, because you uneducated, you sound good to you. I was like, wow. You know what I'm saying? And as I came to the deen, I remember reading about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they said one thing that the Rasul did, he would sit there and attentively and listen to every word that a person said before he respond. Sometimes he might sit there and ponder for a minute before he even responded. Sometimes he would sit so long to the point where people would say, we thought he would never answer. Because he thought about what he was going to say. And just from that, and that'd be the main problem, man. Some of these cats, man, they need to learn how to shut up first, man. For real, man. But anyway, man. And may Allah make us all better, man. And like I say, man, I'm just somebody, man. I want the best for us Muslims, man. And I guess I just see so much dirty stuff, man. But I understand, because we come from I live in reality, man. We come from a toxic, uncivilized environment. And then when we come to Islam, there's a set standard, a system that's in place that civilizes you and takes you, is anti-toxic. And then some of us can't grow into the system. We can't stop being toxic. We go from toxic relationships, one night stands in the clubs, threesomes, running trains, getting trains ran on us, dancing on poles, right? All type of different things going on in jail. And this is a part of society. Paying for women selling themselves. We come from this environment. and then we become Muslim, and then all this, the 90% of this is done while somebody is intoxicated. There's some drinking, there's some smoking, there's some pills. This is our environment. You know what I'm saying? We have to walk around with guns just to go over our friend's house. Don't even have no beef. Don't even have no money to get robbed of. But it's the only way for us to feel safe. You finna go visit 10 homies, and out of 10 of y'all, 8 of y'all got to put y'all gun on the floor just to be around each other. And then the women who think that's cool. You know what I'm saying? I seen a post on social media, right? And this girl said, Muslim. Muslim. She said, "Ooh, it's just something about that man when he put that gun on the dresser." And then another female chimed in and said, "Girl, that's why I got 3 kids now." He said, "Girl, that's why I got 3 kids now." Him coming in, putting that gun on that dresser. But that environment, you know what I'm saying? But then it might be a good dude, best individual for you, but he ain't put no gun on the dresser. He can ride around peacefully, don't have no problems. But then we take our shahada and come into a system where all of that is wrong. Every last bit of it. Some of us can't change. And on top of that, you got to learn. You got to sit in classes. You got to read. We don't like reading no books. We buy them. You know how many people I know, man, be sitting around with 48 powers of law and ain't did nothing but flip through it. The Art of War ain't really sat around and read it for real. But they have it and they just talk that foolishness. And I know it because I done read both of them. Years and years and years ago. Alhamdulillah, I've always been a book reader. But the point is, now you got to learn. Now you got to get educated. And now you might done did 20 years. You might done did about 17 years. You might be in and out of prison since you was a kid. A year here, 2 years here, 3 years there, 5 years there. So you got a lot of penitentiary mouth. A lot of just Hollywood talking. You know what I'm saying? Like my uncle, he was Muslim, man. He was locked up, right? And he used to call me, man, and I would call this little female stuff for him, right? He want me to sit on the phone, and he'd be like, "Yeah, when I come home, I want to go to Six Flags." And we was still young. He was in prison, but he was still young, right? Early 20s. "I want to go to Six Flags. I'm gonna take you to Six Flags. We gonna do this. We gonna go to Florida and go to Disney World." You know, he was just talking all this, and you know, she was eating it up. She was a little older than him, from Chicago, right? But she was from the street, and she was eating this up. She really wanted to get involved. You know, she really wanted that different life. "I'm gonna get this little house. We gonna do the picket fence and all this other stuff, right?" And then when he would hang up with her, I'd be like, man. Now see, because I'm young, but I'm in a situation that's like that though. You know what I'm saying? We didn't go to no Florida to no Disney World, but we used to jump up and, you know, we used to go do some stuff, right? But I'm still fairly young. You know, I'm not in my 20s yet, but you know, he was older than me by a few years, right? So when he came home and got on this exactly what he was on, I was like, man, what about all that stuff, man, you was talking about on the phone and this and that? He was like, man, that's just prison talk. He was like, man, everybody do that, man. But that's just prison talking, man. You know, you gotta say something. I gotta say something to keep her doing her bid with me. You know, she looked out for me, so you know I'm gonna do something to make that right. But I got to shake her off, man. You know what I'm saying? There's too much butts out here. You know what I'm saying? She from the street. She gonna keep me in the streets. But me mentioning him saying that, and then it just these individuals sometimes when they come home, they still prison talking, man. And a Muslim is still prison talking. Yeah, man, get together, man, read these books, man. I want to read these books. I'm going to build a whole library, man. I'm going to give me a house. I'm going to get 3 rooms, knock the wall down. The whole thing going to be a library. I ain't going to do nothing but read Quran. And then other people be sitting around like, oh, yeah, alhamdulillah. Oh, yeah. Another cat, man, I'm going to do the same, this, and the third. But the whole time they just talking. But they don't know in Islam, that's extremely sinful. Because 1, you lying, and 2, you don't have no intentions on doing that, and it could fall into riyah because you saying all this as a form of showing off, but it's something that you ain't never gonna do. And then every time you see them, yeah, man, I'm working on that library, man, I got 10 books on the way, I got 15 books on the way. Because you may be a person, like with me, I'm a book reader for real. And I have books, so it's like people be trying to tell me this and that. And I just, in my head, it just be like, wallahi, man, Muslims get me to the point where sometimes I don't want to go around them because I don't want them to start lying to me. Like, wallahi, I keep my conversation short, be like, man, salam alaikum, let me get up out of here. Because I don't want Allah to hold them accountable because they going to start lying to me. And that be from... out of 15 encounters, they done lied to me all 15 times. So it's just like, man, I don't even want... And then out of 15 encounters, they done told me the exact same lie 15 times. So now just like, man, let me salon this cat and get up out of here, man, before he start lying to me, man. We done failed the sisters, man. Anyway, man, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.